A part of this video series is sponsored by LearnSQL.com. Hello everyone, it is day 30. It's the last day in my 30-day SQL query challenge. And the problem that we have for today is to basically generate a report related to the student results. Now, as you can see, this is a problem statement. First of all, let us read through the problem statement. Given tables represent the marks scored by engineering students. So we have been given three different tables. There is a student table, student marks table, and subjects table. In the students table, you basically see information about 6 different students, their roll number and their name. Then in the student marks, you see the information about 6 different student IDs and their marks in 6 different subjects. And then you have the subject table, which basically mentions the 6 different subject names along with the pass marks, the passing mark for each of these subject. Now, what we need to do is we need to create a report to display the following results for each student. So we need to provide the student ID, student name, total percentage of all marks, as you can see here. And along with that, we also need to mention the failed subjects. And if there are multiple failed subjects for a student, then all of those should be comma separated values, as you can see here. And then finally, we need to mention the result. If the percentage is greater than or equal to 70, then it should be first class. If it is between 50 and 70%, then it is second class. And if it is less than 50%, then it should be third class. But the result should be fail if a student fails in any subject irrespective of their percentage. Even if a student scores first class but they fail in a subject, then their final result should be fail. Okay, that is what this means. Now there are a couple of more things to consider. The sequence of subjects in student marks table match with the sequential ID from subjects table. What this means is, you can see here in the marks table, the student marks table, the column names are basically subject 1 up to subject 6, right? There are no subject names as such. The subject names are mentioned in the subject table. What they're saying is, this sequence of subjects that is mentioned here is in sync with the sequence of subjects that is mentioned here. Okay, so that is something that we need to consider. Then they are saying the students have the option to choose either 4 or 5 subjects only. So maximum a student can only choose 5 subjects, 4 or 5 subjects. Okay, that is why you can see in some of the subjects here, the value is blank, right? That means for the student 1, they only opted for 4 subjects and 2 of them are basically null. And there are some students who have opted for 5 subjects, as you can see this student 3 here, right? So these are all the details that are given. Now using all of these details, we need to come up with this report. Okay, I hope you understand this problem statement. You will now be able to download all the materials from my blog as well as from my Discord server. Try to solve it and then share your solution in the Discord server. Now, a lot of you guys have been involved actively in this 30-day series and you have solved so many different problems, have seen so many different solutions from you guys. Now, I think it's a pretty good time to take an assessment of your SQL skill level. Now, if you want to take a free assessment of your SQL skill, then I would highly recommend that you check out the SQL skills assessment that is provided for free on the LearnSQL.com platform. So I'll leave a link to this. You can just go here, you can just start an assessment. You will need to basically clear some tests. And after that, you will kind of get an understanding of what are the different concepts of SQL that you are good at and what are the different concepts of SQL that you probably need to work on. Okay, this is a pretty good way to just measure your skills with SQL after this 30-day series. Now, along with this free SQL assessment that LearnSQL.com provides, they also provide several different courses related to SQL. Now, let's say there are certain concepts in SQL, for example, let's say window function or joins or recursion or some other, these concepts that you are not that comfortable with and you would like to take an online course, then I'd highly recommend you to check out the online courses related to all of these concepts that are available on LearnSQL.com. But let's say you are thorough with all the concepts, you just want to practice solving more and more SQL queries, then still you will find several different courses on the LearnSQL.com platform that are specific to solving or practicing SQL queries. Now, among the few different reasons on why I highly regard the LearnSQL.com platform, one of the main reasons is the practical hands-on learning experience that you get with LearnSQL.com. So every single concept that you learn on this concept will be practically taught to you. There is very less of the theoretical explanation, but more about the problem solving technique. So in order to learn a concept, you need to solve an SQL query and only then you kind of cover that concept and only then you learn that concept, which I think is the best way of learning. So if you are interested in checking out the LearnSQL.com platform, I'm going to leave a link in the video description, so definitely check them out. And I want to thank LearnSQL.com for sponsoring a part of this 30-day video series. So thank you so much for that. Now let's get back into solving today's problem. Now I'll be solving this problem using the PostgreSQL database, and I'm using the PG admin tool. I have the three tables created. I have the student table first, which has the student roll number and the student name. There are totally 6 students. Then I have the subjects table, which has information about the 6 different subjects, basically the subject name and the passing mark. So for mathematics, the passing mark is 40, whereas for artificial intelligence, the passing mark is 30. So we need to consider this passing mark, right, in order to identify the result of each student. And then finally, we have the student marks table, which basically has information about the 6 different students along with the marks they have scored in each subject. Now, we have to do few different things, but the first thing that we need to do is we need to find the total percentage of all marks, right? So first, let us try to focus only on finding the total percentage. Now, you might think in order to find the total percentage, you just need to basically sum up all of these column values and then divide it by total number of values, right? So here there are 2 nulls, so you might ignore that and you might manually put for student 1 it is add all of this and divide by 4, whereas for student 3 add all of this then divide by 5. So manually you will need to do this. This is not the right way of doing. The better way of solving this problem is you have this data in column level, you need to convert this into row level, right? So once I can convert it into row level, then I can easily use the aggregate functions like average to basically find the percentage, right? And that is exactly what I will be doing. So what I'll do is I'll take the student marks, right? And I'm going to give an alias like SM. And what I'm going to do is how I will basically do this transpose is using the cross join lateral syntax. Okay, so I'll just tell cross join. I'll use the lateral keyword. Okay, and then inside this, what I want to do is I want to use another keyword called values. Okay, so there is one keyword values. I'm not sure if you are aware of this. I'm going to explain what this does. But inside values, you can provide a list of values, and whatever list of values that you provide, it will be represented as a separate column. Okay. For example, if I just show you what values does, I'll just show you here. So I'll just tell select star from, and I'll say values. And here, let's say I'm just going to provide 1, 2, and then this is my first record. Then in the second record I want to mention 3, 4, right? And in the third record I want to mention, let's say 5, 6. That's it, and I'll give an alias here x. And if I run it, now you can see that I'm basically what it has done is this values keyword, whatever you provided here, each of these values, it is basically represented as one row, right? So this is one row, this is second row, third row, and so on, right? So this is the concept that I'll try to use here. Okay, so what I'll do is I have this lateral join that I'm using, that is fine. Why I'm using lateral? So that I could use some of the columns from here into this values keyword. That is the whole purpose, right? Cross join because I'm not joining anything. So every record of this table should join with every other record from here. Okay, you will see once I write this whole syntax. So what I'll do is, if I look at my student marks table, my first column is subject 1. So I'm just going to say subject 1, and I'll just copy this and I'll put here. Okay, so this basically becomes my first row. So I want to convert each of these columns into row level. So in the first row, I want the name of the subject, that is subject 1, and then its value, that is 75, right? And then in the second row I want subject 2, then its value, right? And it should be corresponding to each student. So the number of records here basically would multiply because I have like 6 students but 6 subjects, so 6 into 6, probably I will get 36 records. Okay, now let me just complete this syntax, and I'm just going to say this for subject 2, this for subject 3, and let's say I'll have subject 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so I'll just remove this comma here, I'll remove this comma here, and I'll just move this here. Okay, now I'll just replace each of these with the proper subject name. So this is for subject 2, this is for subject 3, and this is for subject 4. Then I have my subject 5, and then finally I have my subject 6. Okay, and I need to give an alias here. So let's say I'll just give x, and if I just run this, now you can see that I am getting 36 records. Previously there were 6 students, but I'm getting 36 records. The reason why I'm getting 36 records, if I just show you, you look for the first 6 records here. It belongs to the first student. I had 6 subjects, but you see here, these 6 columns are now represented in row level value. So they are basically transposed, right? So you see here, I have subject 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then there is marks code in each of the subject is mentioned here. Okay, and this is corresponding to the first student. When I go to the second student, you will see that the 6 records here, if you just try to compare it, this 57, 46, 32, 30 are here, 57, 46, 32, 30, etc. Right? So using this lateral keyword, I was able to use this column within the cross join here, and then values keyword kind of transposes each value that you provide here into one separate row. Okay, so there are 6 different rows here. Okay, I hope you understand this. So basically I have done this transpose. Now I don't need these 6 columns here, so I'll just fetch the columns that I need. So I need the student ID, and you see that by default the column names are, this is column 1 and this is column 2, right? So I'll just use that name. So I'll say column 1, and I'm going to call it like, let's say, subject code, and then my column 2, I'm going to call it like, let's say, marks. Okay, so if I just run this, now you can see that I'm getting for each student the subjects and their marks. One more thing that I can do here is basically I can join with the students table to get the student name, because in the student table I have the name, right? So I'll just join with the students table. I'll give it alias like yes. I'll say yes dot roll number equal to sem dot student ID, right? And here I'm just going to say yes dot name. Okay, and I think that's all. If I run it now, along with the roll number, the student ID, I also have the student name. Okay, this is fine. Additionally, I'm not interested where the marks are null. Where the marks are null, this basically means this student has not opted for this subject, so I don't need to consider it, right? So I can just put a filter here saying that where marks, or basically I need to say column 2 is not null. So if I just run this, now you can see I'm getting 27 records. Okay, so this is basically what I wanted. Now from here, if I wanted to find the average percentage, it's very easy. If I could just group the data based on each student ID, and I could just find the average of these 4 values, I will get the average, right? I don't need to do anything. Okay, now I'm going to do that average a little later, because if I do this average now, then I will need to aggregate it based on the student ID and the marks. I will lose which mark was scored for which subject. I'm going to lose that, but I actually need it for some other purpose. If you see here, one of the purposes I need to display which are the failed subjects. So I need to know the marks corresponding to each subject. So I still need this value here. So this aggregation to find the percentage, I'll do it a little later. Now the next thing that I want to do is, for each of this subject that you see here, I have the subject code. This is not the subject name as such. The subject name is present in the subjects table. But how do I join these subject names? Basically, how do I tag? Like, how do I tag, let's say, whatever this subject code that I have, that is subject 1, 2, 3, 4, which is basically a column name. How do I tag it to the actual subject name, right? Because I cannot join it here, because what you see here, I don't have some value like this in my subjects table. In my subjects table, I only have the subject name and the ID, right? And then in the student marks table, if you see these subjects, basically what you see here, these are the column names. These are not values, right? So if you have to basically join or kind of do some lookup between a column name with a value from other table, one way of doing it is by using some data dictionary tables. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'll leave this query as it is. I'll write another query. So I'll just keep it as it is. And here I just want to find the column names from this table. Okay, so I'm just going to say select star from, if you guys are aware of this information schema, which is basically a data dictionary. So these are some tables that comes by default when you install a database. These are the tables which basically stores information about your database. Okay, now this is the schema name, and then the table name is basically, let's say, columns, because I'm interested in the column name. If I run it, it basically tells me in this whole database, it tells me what is the database name, what is the schema name. Okay, this is not the schema that I created. This is some default schemas. What are the different tables and what are the columns they have, right? Now the table that I am interested in is table name equal to, I think, student marks, right? So that is what I'll put here. Okay, and this is what I need. And within this table, I am only interested in the subject columns. I don't need the student ID. So I can just put a filter saying that where column name like I would say subject percentage. I think that's all. Okay, so these are the 6 subjects. Now the column that I actually interested in is the column name. This is a field that I actually want. And let me just move this down so it becomes kind of little neat, right? So I need to fetch this column, but I need to fetch it in this order. So that is fine. But along with that, I want to create a unique row number for each of this subject. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'm just going to use the row number function. So I'll say row number over, and I'll say order by. I'm going to sort these columns based on this column, that is ordinal position, which basically tells in which position the columns are represented in the table. So I'll say ordinal position, and I'm going to name it like RN, and my column name, I'm going to name it like, let's say, subject code. Okay, if I just run this, now you can see that I'm getting the 6 row numbers and I'm getting the 6 subject. Okay, this is fine. I wanted this because I'm going to use this to basically join with the subjects table. So if I see the subjects table, I will try to join it somehow to get the subject names. Okay, but you see here I do not have any row number as such, so I'm going to create a row number for this. So what I'll do is I'll just tell select. Okay, in fact I can just put this, and here I can just tell, I'll just copy the same row number function here. So I'll just put it here, and I need to sort it based on the ID field, and I want to fetch the name, that is my subject name. Okay, so if I just run this, I'm getting the subject name here. So from this query, I'm getting the subject name along with this row number, and the above query, I'm getting the subject code along with the row number. Okay, and now I can join it. Now, why do you think that they will always be in sync? It's because it is already given in the problem statement. The sequence of subjects in student marks table match with the sequential ID from the subjects table. So it is already given. Okay, so we can basically consider this join. So in order to join it, I'm just going to say select from, I'll just open the parenthesis here and just move this to the right, and I'll close the parenthesis. I'll give an alias like, let's say, X, and I want to join with this query here. So I'll just move this, and I'll close the parenthesis. I'll call it like B, and I'm going to join by saying B.rn equal to A.rn, right? And what I want to fetch here is I want to fetch the subject code, and then I want to fetch the subject name, and I also want to fetch the passing marks, because in the subjects table I also have pass marks, right, which I did not take it here, but let me put it here. So pass marks, and the same thing I'm just going to copy here. Okay, so now if I just run this, now you can see that for each of the subject code I know what is the subject name actually and the passing mark, right? So I have got this query here, so I have the subject code here, and in the above query I have got the student IDs along with the marks for each subject. Now I can join these two queries to basically get all the details that I need, like the marks, the passing marks for each subject, tag to each student, etc. Right? And that is what I'll do. And now I'm just going to use the with clause here. So I'll just tell with CTE marks as, and I'm just going to move this to the right. I'll close the parenthesis. I'll put a comma here. I'll say city underscore subject as, and here again I'll move this to the right and open the parenthesis. I'll close the parenthesis, and then finally I'm just going to say select star from, let's see, I need to join the two tables, right? So first of all, let me just move this little down so you can see the whole query, and I want to join these two tables. So I'll say CT marks, which I'm going to call it like, let's say, CM, join it with the CTE sub, which is going to be called like CS. How do I join it? I think I have the subject code in both the places, right? So I'm just going to say CS dot subject code equal to CM dot subject code, right? If I just run it, you can see that I'm still getting 27 records. And now I have the complete picture. So I have the student ID, their name, their subject, their marks, and their pass mark. Here I have the subject name as well, right? Now let me just fetch the fields that I need. So I need the student ID, I need the name, I need the subject code. Okay, I don't need the subject code, but I need the subject name, and then I need the marks, and then I need the pass marks, right? I think that's all I need. Okay, so these are the things that I need. So now I think I can basically proceed from here in order to find the total percentage and also to find the subjects in which the students have failed. So in order to find the total percentage, what I can do here is I can just do an average, right? So for each student, if I find the average of marks, I'll get the total percentage marks, right? So I'm just going to say average of marks, and this is going to be my percentage marks, right? But in order to find this average, I need to group the data based on the student ID and their name. So I'm just going to say group by student ID comma name, and I'll say order by the student ID. That should be fine, right? And because I'm grouping based on this, and I cannot use these three fields, student name, marks, and pass marks, and actually I don't need them as well. So I'll just comment them out. And if I run it, now for each student, I'm able to get the percentage marks, right? Now I have too many decimal points. So let me just round them to 2 decimal points. And if I run it, now I'm getting the total percentage marks. So if you see in my requirement, these three fields, I have got it here, right? The next thing is I need to find all the failed subjects, right? In order to find the failed subjects, what I can do is I can put a case statement. So if I just comment out this average for now, and if I'll just uncomment this, okay, and I just want to show you the data. So let's say if I just run this, you see I have the marks and I have the pass marks. So if I want to know if a student has failed in a subject, I just need to see if this marks is greater than or equal to the passing marks, right? So I can do that using a case statement saying that case when marks is greater than or equal to the pass marks, if it is at least equal to the pass marks or greater than that, then that means the student has passed. So I'm trying to find a failed subject, so I can just put null here. Else, if the marks are less than the passing marks, then I need to basically fetch that subject name. So whatever that subject name is, I'll just put it here, right? And I'll say end, and I'm just going to call it like, let's say failed subjects. If I run it, I'm getting an error. Okay, I should not be including the group by. So if I run it now you can see that, okay, here the failed subjects are null. Okay, but wherever the marks are less than the passing marks, you can see I have the failed subjects. And if I go down, there is one more here, right? So I have got this, but I need to aggregate them because I need to have them comma separated. For example, in this particular case, I think these two subjects failed are basically for the same student rows, right? In order to bring both these values together in the same row, I can use the string aggregate function. So I can just tell string underscore aggregate. I can put this whole case inside that, and I'll say the separator to be space comma space. Okay, and I can also include this average. I can comment out the subject, and now I'll include the group by and everything. And if I run the whole thing, now you can see that I'm only getting 6 records, as you can see, and for each student I'm getting their average percentage mark, and wherever a student has failed, I can see that they are failed subjects mentioned here, okay, comma separated values. Okay, so this is exactly what I wanted. Now there is only one last thing that I need to find, and that one last thing is basically the result, okay, based on the percentage mark and the failed subjects. So for that, I can easily do that here as well, but it would kind of become a little too messy because I will need to use these percentage marks and these failed subjects. So just to keep the query neat, what I'll do is I'll just put this into another CT. So I'll just move this into the right, and here I'm just going to call it like CTE aggregate as, and I'll open the parentheses. And okay, I don't need the order by here. I'll remove that. And then finally, I'm just going to say select star from CT aggregate, right? And what I want to do here is, okay, if I just run it, I'm still getting the same output. Now I want to basically find a result. My result is based on the condition that is mentioned here, right? So the condition is case when if there are any failed subject, if a student has failed in any subject, that means here it is not null, right? So if the failed subject is not null, then I can just tell the result to be fail, right? Otherwise, in other cases, if the student has not failed any subject, then I need to compare their percentage marks. So here I can just tell percentage marks. When the percentage mark is greater than or equal to 70, then I'll say they are first class, their result is first class, right? Else, so else if it is, let's say, between 50 and 70, if it is between 50 and 70, then I will tell second class, right? And then finally I can tell if it is less than 50. Okay, so if it is less than 50, then the result is third class. Okay, that is what is mentioned in the problem statement. Okay, and I think that's all. Then I'll end my case and I'll call it like result. If I run the whole thing, I'm getting an error because I missed the is keyword. So I'll just run it again. And now you can see that I'm getting the final output. So for each student, their percentage marks, if they have failed a subject, and their result. Now, I do not want to display a null here. So what I can do is in the failed subjects, that is this one here, I can just fetch all the fields here. So I'll say student ID, name, percentage marks, and then the failed subject. So I can use a call is here. So I'll say call is, I'll put this. If it is null, then I want to display like a dash or a hyphen. Okay, and this whole thing I'll just call it failed subjects. So if I run it now, I think this is the final output that I required based on as per my problem statement. Okay, so I hope you liked this problem. I hope you understood this problem. If you did, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and I would really appreciate if you can give me a feedback about this 30-day series. It would be really interesting to know, has it helped you, how it has helped you, and if it has not helped you, what were you looking for, etc. I really like to read your feedback. Thank you so much for being part of this 30-day series. I really appreciate all the support and for all the contribution in sharing the solution and helping each other in my Discord server. And I'll definitely be making more interesting videos from here on as well. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye.